Hi, this recording is for graduate research. I will be going over briefly the methodology section of your research proposal. This will be the last section in the proposal. So for your method section, you will first have your purpose. And this is not the same as your purpose statement from the beginning. So this purpose is you're not going to introduce your topic again. Rather, you're going to introduce the general methodology most authors have taken on your topic. So, as you did your literature review, did most of them use qualitative? Did most you use quantitative? So, that's kind of what your discussion is. And then you're going to let your audience know what method you will be using. The purpose is a statement of what you intend to study, not what you intend to find. Then following the purpose will be the study design. This is where you will discuss, first off, the broad category. Are you doing qualitative or quantitative? Or mixed methods. Then you will explain why you're using that type of study. And describe and explain the design. So are you going to do an ethnographic design? Are you going to do interview, etc.? So the design information is in Blackboard. So make sure you read through that and the chapters in the text to see which design best fits your study, because that's what you're going to explain in this section is what you're using and why. Why is this design the best design for your study? Following that will be the population and sample. Now, often we might think these are both the same thing, but they're not. The population is the general overall population you plan to study from. So, for example, social workers in Idaho, that could be a possibility. But then from that population, you're only going to use a sample. So again, for example, let's say I'm doing a study and I am using a school district where I live. Well, I'm obviously not going to pull every single person from that population. So then I have my sample. Sample is how many do you intend to have, whether it be 10, 20, 40, etc. Do you plan for it to be a convenient sample, meaning you select the people yourself and invite them to participate? Or would you plan to use a random sample where it goes out to the wide population and whoever responds would be part of that? So here, just give as much information about the population that you can. If it's a school district related, I do find a lot of district websites will have information on the population as far as statistics on race or income level, age, gender. So those are the things you're going to address in that section. Under that will be your instrumentation. So this is where you're telling, what do you plan to use? Do you plan to use a survey to collect your data? Do you plan to take observational notes? Are you going to be there and observe? So what type of instrumentation would you use? It may be a combination. For example, you might plan to do a survey, but also do an interview. So just whatever you would plan to use, that's where you put it here. It's okay to just have one instrument. It's okay to have a few instruments. You just don't want to have too much. Try to think a little more narrow for this. Then following that will be your data collection. So here you're going to explain how you plan to collect your data. So will the instrument be sent out via email? Will it be sent out in the mail? How are you going to collect that data back that you send out or that you collect? Then following that is the data analysis. So in this section, you're going to discuss how would you plan to analyze the data? So if it's quantitative, are you going to use statistics? If it's qualitative, are you going to be looking for themes in your observations, etc.? So that's what you're going to talk about there. And then the final part of the method section will be your limitations. So here you're going to discuss any possible limitations. Remember, you've not actually done the study, so you don't know. But what do you predict? Do you predict that your sample size might be too small for it to apply to the general public? Do you foresee having limitations with time or with money? Is it a costly study? So that's what goes there. Some key points to remember in this section is first, it's not a very long section. It's 2 to 3 pages in length. So each of these 7 items is only going to have about a paragraph, maybe 2 paragraphs. It's okay to go beyond that page limit, but really we're not going super in depth in this section because you've not actually conducted the research. Now, if you actually conducted the research, then you would go back to this section and add more. As a reminder, do not use personal pronouns. I and my are not used in research because it creates bias. So do not do that. So do not write, I plan to use interviews. Rather, you would say, this study will use interviews to collect data. Just take the personal out of it. And if you have trouble doing that, please reach out for help. You also have the Writing Center available to you that you could meet with someone to get help with that as well. And then I also highly recommend using Grammarly, as it will help you to work on your sentence structure as well. And then finally, a point I want to make sure you remember is that all of the writing is going to be written in future tense. Remember, you did not conduct the study. So you will not use past tense. You will use future tense. So this study will address. This study will, not this study did, or the findings were, because you've not actually conducted the research. So that is the method section. Please reach out with any questions. I hope these videos have been helpful. If you have suggestions for me on what to include in videos or what's lacking information-wise for the